Alright, so this is going to be part 2 of our factoring series, and this is your next tab, and that's the 4 terms where you can group. We've got 2 different things with the 4 terms. The bottom one says 4 or more, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but the 4 terms where you can group is going to be in the format like this. You need to put it in standard form. Well, you know what? Not necessarily always, but usually you need to put it in standard form, and this is how it works. I'm going to throw some steps down the side, and we'll do a couple of examples together. So maybe this won't take too terribly long. And I didn't leave room for my steps like I did on the other pages on this page. I apologize, but we can muddle through that. So the thing that you do is you're going to group, hence the name grouping, the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. But what you really have to do is see if those first 2 terms have the greatest common factor and the last 2 terms have the greatest common factor, and that's how you want to put things together. And I will say this, just because of dealing with signs, if one of your lead terms has a negative, you want to put that negative sign in the group. Oh, goodness gracious. You're going to group that negative sign with the term that it's attached to, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to find your greatest common factor in each group. Please know that I write fast and talk fast. You can back up, pause, slow down, rewind, whatever you need to do. So that you can get what I'm doing. So I'm going to do an example with my steps here. So the first thing I've got 42 v cubed minus 35 v squared minus 24v plus 20. Alright, so I like to, just for my sake, I will use different colors so I can keep myself straight with what I'm doing. So I'm going to make sure I have sorry, people just walk in even though there's a sign on the door that says please stay out. Okay, so I want to make sure that I have a greatest common factor and that I have a greatest common factor, and I do. If I group these 2 together, and I said just a second ago, if there's a negative on that lead term, I want you to just stick it in the parentheses when you group things. So that doesn't mean that I'm turning that into multiplying, and I use that different color just to show that, okay, I'm grouping this, and we're going to take out our greatest common factor now. So that's that's your second step, is find the greatest common factor in each group. So in this group, I can take out a 7v squared, and that leaves me with 6v minus 5. Ooh, that just went totally white. In this group, I can take out, now that's a negative 24v plus 20. So let me turn on the lamp and see if that helps. Probably not. That might have made it worse. So I'm going to take out that negative. So go ahead and write it down that you're taking out a negative. 24v and 20 have a 4 in common. And so that's going to leave me with, if I take out a negative, it's changing the signs. So that's going to be a positive 6v minus 5. So stop and look at that and make sure you understand what I did. I factored out a negative 4, and that left me with 6v minus 5. Check it. That's going to give me negative 24v when I multiply. If I multiply here, I'm going to get a positive 20. I'm about to quit and just go home because there weren't the announcements. Anyway, so found my greatest common factor. Check it. 7v squared times 6v is 42v cubed. 7v squared times negative 5 is negative 35v squared. So here's the trick to the whole thing. Both sets of parentheses, must match. If they don't, something's wrong and you need to go back and re-evaluate what you did and see what the problem might be. Okay, so now what happens is those parentheses, here's a term, 7v squared times 6v minus 5, and here's a term, negative 4 times 6v minus 5. This set of parentheses becomes my common factor. This is my greatest common factor for these two terms. So the parentheses are now your greatest common factor, and you know what to do with that. You take it out. So if I factor out a 6v minus 5 from both sets, a 7v squared minus 4. That's my answer. If I multiply back out, 6v times 7v squared is 42v cubed. I multiply here, I'm going to get a negative 24v. That's here. If I multiply these, I'm going to get a negative 35v squared. That's here. If I multiply these two, I'm going to get a positive 20. That's here. So I can know without a doubt that my answer is correct. So that was our first example. We got interrupted 3 times. We're going to try another one. Hopefully nobody comes busting in and no bells ring and no intercoms go off. Whew. Alright, so let's do another one. And I didn't do the one thing that I told you to do on the last video. I said, always check for greatest common factor first. And I didn't do that, and I should have. So I'm going to do it this time, and I'm not going to forget. So I have 3x cubed minus 12x squared plus 4x minus 16. So if I look at my terms, 3, negative 12, 4, and 16 have nothing in common as a group. And I can't take out any x's because this one has 3, 2, 1, and this one has 9. So no greatest common factor. If I look, do I have a GCF here? Yep. Do I have a GCF here? Yep. So if I group them, now let's take the greatest common factor out of each group. So in this first set of parentheses, I can take out a 3x squared, and that's going to leave me with x minus 4. Make sure you understand that. If I multiply this back out, 3x cubed minus 12x squared. In the second set, I can take out a positive 4 because my greatest common factor here is a positive 4, and that's going to leave me with x minus 4. And that's what I wanted, is for these things to be the same, because now in this term, I have an x minus 4, and in this term, I have an x minus 4. So my greatest common factor now is x minus 4, and that leaves me, when I factor this out, it leaves me with a 3x squared plus 4. I can check it. That's going to multiply to give me 3x cubed. Got it. That's going to give me a 4x. Got it. This is going to give me negative 12x squared. Got that. This is going to give me negative 16. Back up and watch it again if you need to. Next example. Oops, 3, not 4. Trying to get finished. Here we go. I've got 56x cubed plus 64x squared plus 224x plus 256. Now, I said look for a greatest common factor first. I know I can at least take out a 2 because they're all even. So go ahead and take a minute and find your greatest common factor. I don't think that it's 2. And if you want to, start thinking about things that will go into, what will go into these two things. I know 8 will. So if 8 will go into these two, see if 8 will go into these two. Well, if I do 224 divided by 8, I get 28. If I do 256 divided by 8, I'm going to get 32. So 8 is my greatest common factor over the whole thing. When I take out that 8, I put it in brackets because I'm going to use these parentheses in a minute, and when you get parentheses inside parentheses, it can get confusing. So when I have a greatest common factor, I just put it in a little bracket and I rewrite my problem. So I factor an 8 out of 56x cubed, gives me 7x cubed. If I factor an 8 out of 64x squared, I get 8x squared. if I factor in 8 out of 224x, I get 28x. And if I factor in 8 out of 256, I get 32. And I close it with my square bracket. So now, for just a minute, I can leave that negative 8, sorry. I can leave that 8 on the outside. Just think about that 8 like your little, you just got your little tag along. You got to keep bringing it down with you, but you really don't have to consider it when you're doing this part of the work. So now, let's do our little thing. Let's group. We don't really have things we can put together right there like a GCF other than the x squared. But let's see if it works out for us, because sometimes it does, if it's just variables that you can take out. So, keep dragging this little 8 along. Here, I can take out an x squared, and that leaves me with 7x plus 8. Here, I can take out a positive 4. Leaves me with 7x, plus 8. Now here's where I can dump those brackets off because I don't need them anymore. I'm rewriting this as factors, things that are being multiplied. So I have 8, which was my original greatest common factor. I have my greatest common factor here is 7x plus 8 because I have one in this term, I have one in this term. So I can take out that common factor, and it leaves me with x squared plus 4. It's factored. I can multiply all of this back out and see if it gives me what I started with. Okay? Last one. Example 4. I have 21mn plus 16m squared plus 6m cubed plus 56n. Alright, so I'm looking at this, and I said check and see if you got a GCF, check and see if you got a GCF, and kind of think ahead about what's going to happen. The only thing I can take out here is an m. If I factor an m out of these two things, I'm going to be left with a 21n plus 16m. Think about that. I don't have a post-it note. I have this. If I take out, I'm going to do some little side work before I put it on my actual flip chart. If I take out an m, that's going to leave me with 21n plus 16m. Here, the only thing I can take out would be a 2. And that's going to leave me with 3m cubed plus, so you see right away, I can see this is not going to work. I'm not going to have the same stuff. So sometimes you have to rearrange. Because sometimes you're not going to have a greatest common factor in those terms once you group them, and so sometimes you need to rearrange them and figure out how you can group them together so that you can get the right stuff. So I'm looking at things that I know are going to go together, and sometimes it doesn't matter how you rearrange it. You may have more than one possibility, but the thing that I'm seeing is the 21 and the 6 have a 3m in common, and that's going to leave me with an m squared and an n, and these two things have an 8 in common, and that's going to leave me with an m squared and an n. So that's probably going to be my best bet. So I'm going to do this. 21mn plus 6m cubed plus 16m squared plus 56n, because addition is commutative. I can rearrange. And now let's group them and see if that helps us. So what can I take out of here for my greatest common factor? We already said we could take out a 3m, and that's going to leave me with 7n plus 2m squared. And here I can take out a positive 8, just an 8. And that's going to leave me with 2m squared plus 7n. Okay, so look, they're flipped around backwards, but that's okay because addition is commutative. So this is my greatest common factor. I have a 7n plus 2m squared. I have a 2m squared plus 7n, which is the same thing. So here's my greatest common factor. I can take out, and it doesn't matter which order you write it in. I can take out that greatest common factor, and it leaves me behind a 3m plus 8. So there's grouping.